When I said I'd give my right arm to you, I didn't think you'd ask me for it. But you did. You said, give it to me. And so I said, okay. There were lots of reasons I gave it to you. First of all, I didn't want to be made a liar of. I never lied to you. So when you reminded me that I said it, and asked me if I really meant it, I didn't want to seem like I was copying out by saying I'd only spoken figuratively. I had the feeling you didn't think that I would really do it, that you were testing me to see if I would, and I wanted you to know that I would. I believed you wouldn't have asked me for it unless you really wanted it and needed it. But when you got it, you bronzed it, and you put it on the mantle over the fireplace. I'm sorry. I forgive you. To apologize without change is manipulation. To forgive the abuser is to blame the victim. To forgive the one who lied is to paint over your own truth. And yet, how can we learn to forgive ourselves without forgiving others? Forgiveness by Rebecca Brown. The night you took it, I dreamt of arms. I slept on the couch in the den because I was still bleeding and we didn't want me to wake you up. And when I slept, I dreamt of arms. We kept my arm in the bathtub, bleeding like a fish. When I went to bed, the water was the color of rose water, with thick red lines like strings. When I woke up for the first time to change my bandages, it was colored like salmon. Then it was carnation red, then maroon, then burgundy, then purple, thick, and almost black by morning. In the morning, I watched you take it out and pat it dry, and wrap it in saran wrap and take it out to get it bronzed. I learned to do things differently, to button my shirts, to screw and unscrew the toothpaste cap, to tie my shoes. We didn't think of this. Together, we were valiant, brave, and stoic, though I couldn't quite keep up with you in tennis anymore. In a way, it was fun. Things I once took for granted became significant, like cutting a steak with a knife and fork, untying a knot around a bag, adding milk while stirring. After a while, I developed a scab, and he let me come back to bed. But sometimes in the night, I'd shift or have a nightmare, jolt, and suddenly I'd open up again and bleed all over uncontrollably. The first time this happened, neither of us could go back to sleep. But after a while, you got used to it, and you'd be back asleep in a minute. It didn't seem to bother you at all. But I guess after a while, it started bothering you. Because when I was washing out the sheets I'd bloodied the night before, you said, "You sleep too restless. I don't like it when your bleeding wakes me up. I think you're sick. I think it's sick to cut off your own arm." I looked at you. Your brown eyes as innocent as a puppy. But you cut it off. You asked me for it, so I said okay.
Don't try to make me feel guilty. It was your arm.
That night I bled again. I woke up and the bed was all full of blood, red and wet. I reached over to touch you and tell you I was sorry. But you were not there. I learned more. To cook and clean. To eat a quarter pounder with one fist. To balance my groceries on my knee while my hand fumbled with the front door key. My arm got strong. But then, the novelty wore off. I had to convince myself. I read about those valiant cases. One like yours who run across the continent to save money for causes. I wanted these stories to inspire me. But they didn't. I didn't want to be like those people. I didn't want to be cheery and valiant. I didn't want not to rise above my situation. What I wanted was my arm. Because I missed it. I missed everything about it. I missed the long, solid weight of it in my sleeve. I'm still twisted behind my head, asleep, heavy and tingling. And then I realized that I missed these moments all along. The whole time my arm had been over the mantle, but I didn't want to dwell on those feelings because I didn't want you to feel bad, and I didn't want you to think that I wanted you to feel bad. I decided to look for it. Maybe you sold it. You were always good at things like that. I hit the pawn shops. I walked into them, and they'd ask me if they could help me with anything, and I'd say, I'm looking for an arm. And they'd stare at me. I never have liked acting like things aren't the way that they are. The braver ones would look me directly in the eye. They gave me the names and addresses of outlets selling artificial limbs, or reconstructive surgeons. But I didn't want another one. I wanted mine. I wondered if I was really searching for you. And then it all came clear to me. Like something hacked away at me. You'd done this to me as a test. To show me things. How much things mean to me, but how, if I was forced to, I could get by with only part of me. With next to nothing. And then I thought, how? If you were testing me, you must be watching me. To see if I was passing. So I started acting out my life for you. I whistled with bravado, jaunted rather than walked. I had a confident swagger. I slapped friendly pawn shopkeepers on the shoulders and I told them jokes. I was fun, an inspiration they remember after I'd passed through. I think that I convinced myself, in trying to convince you, that I'd never had an arm that I'd lost. I made myself not miss it. I tested myself. I stared at the empty space above the mantel. I spent the night on the couch. I walked into the bathroom and I stared into the tub. I felt nothing. I went to bed. I looked down my shoulder. The tissue was smooth. I ran my fingers over it. Pink, shiny and slick. As soft as pimento, as cool as a spoon. The tenderest flesh of my body. My beautiful empty sleeve and I were friends, like intimates. So everything was fine. For a while. Then you came back. Then everything did. But I was careful. It had been a long time. I acted like nothing had ever been different. That you had never ripped it out of me, bronzed it, then left with it. I wanted things to stay forgotten. So we were sitting in the den and you looked at me with your eyes all moist and sweet, like they could melt anything in the world. And you said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Could you ever forgive me?" You started crying, your lips quivering. "Why did you do it?" I whispered. You didn't answer. "What did you do with it?" Instead of answering, you shook your head, shrugged your shoulders, and smiled at me. "Answer me! Answer me, God damn it!" But instead of answering, you chatted to me about your adventures. You would tell me how much you had learned about the world in the time that you'd been away. You looked deep into my eyes and you said, "I've changed." I watched your perfect teeth. I felt your hand rumple on the exposed side of me. I couldn't tell you anything. I couldn't tell you that you can't redo a thing that's been undone. I couldn't tell you anything that you would understand. I couldn't tell you that it wasn't just the fact you had ripped it out of me, mounted it, bronzed it, left with it, then lost it. How it wasn't only that, but it was more. How it's when you asked me, I believed you and I told you yes. How? Though I had tried a long time to replace when you had hacked away from me. I could never undo the action of you doing so. And then I thought, how? I could never believe you again. Never forget what you've done to me. What you will do. I'll never forget